Well, it's good to be here this morning. I'm from Altoona, so it's about an hour and a half drive to get here to you guys this morning. It was nice. Some of those roads, it's actually kind of cool. There's these little passing things that says passive care, and so sometimes you just don't do it with care. But hey, we made it here, and it was good. My name is, as he said, it's Bryce McGarvey. I'm 24 years old. I'm in an awkward age range where I don't have any mile markers to keep track of where I'm at in my age, because 25 is next year, or I guess this year, but then past 21. You know what I'm saying? Some of you kind of, you're following me, whatever. So yeah, hey, I grew up in the Alliance. I love the Alliance. I want to work with the Alliance, and that might be coming here down the road. And so I'm here today just to talk with you guys about calling and really what it looks like to participate in a calling on a number of levels. And so just to begin here, if I get this thing to work, I just press that button. Where do I point at? Up there? Up there.
Michelle, you're up. It might work out if not.
Let me, I don't know, save it. You unplugged it.
Did.
My name's a little off.
Who runs this place?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk to you guys today about a missions organization that I am officially hired through called Urban Impact. But before I get to that, so for the past 2 years, I've been working more or less as a youth pastor. Technically, for those that would care about my actual title, I'm a campus director for an official 501c3 called Refuge Youth Network in the Boulder County area. For all intents and purposes, I'm a youth pastor. And so now youth pastors, I don't know if you know this, a lot of guys either my age or a little bit older than me that are youth pastors that go to guest speak at places, they have this really bad habit of talking about their hot wife. Now I'm not going to do that today. That's because I don't have a wife. I'm engaged. I'm going to point that back here. Go and just flip to the next slide there. I'm not going to talk about my hot wife, but
I told you, super high tech.
Well, we'll get there eventually. I'm not going to talk about my super hot wife, but I'm going to talk about my righteous, God-loving fiance that I'm going to be marrying here in the next couple months. We're not doing any premarital, hotness talks right now. We're all about righteousness, holiness, and so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I am engaged to a lady named Courtney Orwig. She works with Urban Impact right now in what's called the Options Department. And so we first met, many years ago, about it'll be 6 years this coming September. And yeah, it's a good time. I love her a lot, but what's even cooler for me is that about 12 years ago, I was first called into the missions field. This coming July will be 12 years. And what's cool for me is that now, I met this girl that we are now going to be entering into the missions field together, which is super exciting for me. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of you, how many of you have ever had a super weird dream before? That let me narrow this down. Maybe you thought it had some kind of meaning attached to it. Oh, what does this mean? You had some sort of fever dream or something, and you're man, I had this dream. There, I see one hand. I see two. Can I get a third one? Yeah! So, yeah, this idea that sometimes we have these dreams where we're okay, well, I was driving down the road, and all of a sudden a unicorn came across the street, and what does that mean, though? Sometimes they mean nothing. Sometimes it's just a weird dream. But sometimes, I tell you what, God uses these dreams. And so, I don't know if this thing's working yet. Am I good? No. Just keep talking? Cool. So, yeah, so we'll get there. This is the Lord's timing. We're going to get there. So, I want to talk to you guys about a specific dream that I had. And even a weird dream, I think probably a borderline weird dream that's found in the Bible. So if you guys got your Bibles, we can get there. we're going to be looking at Genesis. Oh, let me look here. Oh yeah, there she is. Yeah, if you want to look at my attractive fiance, not hot, just attractive, my righteous fiance, that's us for our engagement pictures. That's right. If there's any single guys in the room, don't be calling anyone hot until you're married. Yeah, so we're going to be looking at Genesis 37, story of Joseph. That's up there on the screen if you got your glasses and you can read that. And so we're going to be looking at verse 5 there, starting there. It says, "Now Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, 'Hear this dream that I have dreamed. Behold, we are binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright. And behold, your sheaves gathered around it, bound down my sheaf.' His brothers said to him, 'Are you indeed to reign over us? Or are you indeed to rule over us?' So they hate him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed another dream, and told it to his brothers, and said, 'Behold, I have dreamed another dream. Behold, the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bound down to me.' But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, 'What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you?' And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept his saying in his mind." So, we have a dream, super weird dream. We've actually been going through the book of Genesis in our youth group. And I tell you what, I'm getting very, very tired of trying to teach on dreams over and over again, because up until this point, we've had like probably 3 or 4 different dreams now. And now you just combine 2 into one passage. But, you know, the essence of this is, if you know anything about Joseph, you would know that he is one of the youngest of basically the beginning of the nation of Israel. So his father Jacob, aka Israel, has 12 sons here, 12 tribes of Israel, and Joseph is one of the youngest. Now, something you have to understand about Genesis and the culture at this time is that, I mean, you can follow the theme here all throughout the beginning of Genesis, where technically it should be the older ones that would gain a birthright of some sort. They would gain inheritance, maybe the right to rule over a certain area, but it's always, that's dictated for the oldest of the children. But over and over again, we start to see this theme, not only of sibling rivalry. If you guys know the story of Cain and Esau, Cain and Abel, and Jacob and Esau, you would see this sibling rivalry. But even more so, we see this theme where people who don't deserve the inheritance it's given to them. And so we see that right here, because Joseph, he's not exactly the youngest, but he's one of the youngest. And he's saying right here, I've had this dream 2 times in a row. I don't know how this is going to happen, but I just have this dream and this vision, and everyone's able to interpret it in this way, that I am going to rise above, and I'm going to be a leader. And obviously his brothers don't like that. Is there any older siblings in the room? I don't care if you're old, young, older siblings. So let me ask you a question. Your younger brother or sister comes up to you and says, "Hey, one day I'm going to be your boss." How's that going to make you feel? That's right. Now, full disclosure, I got a confession. I'm actually the baby of the family. I got 3 older brothers. So that'd be like me going up to one of my older brothers and saying, my oldest brother's probably almost 10 years older than me. That'd be like me going up to him and saying, "Hey, I know you sell insurance for a living, but guess what? One day I'm going to tell you how to do it." He's not going to like that. But that's essentially what's happening here in the story of Joseph. And he has this calling laid on his life for something higher. Now, we're not going to dive super far, because this is actually a very long story that's going to be leading up to the Exodus, the book of Exodus. And so, we're not going to dive super deep into this, but if we continue to follow the story of Joseph, so we see this favor almost put on him by God, this desire to rule. And keep in mind, at this point, he's approximately a teenager, maybe 17. Any like teenagers in here? Yeah. Yeah, how old are you? Guy, just raise your hand. How old are you? 17. Yeah, so what's her name? What is it? One more time.
Charlotte.
Charlotte. Charlie. Oh, I'm sorry. Charlie. Okay, I got it. Yeah, so Charlie, he was your age. He was Charlie's age when he's received this dream that he's going to one day rule. Now, if we continue to follow this story, though, what we're going to find is that Joseph experiences a lot of hardship. You know, this route doesn't come easy. You know, this isn't prosperity stuff here. Because if we follow this story, we see that because of his brother's jealousy, he's immediately sold into slavery. He's sold into slavery, and then God helps him. And in fact, it says in the next chapter over, or 2 chapters over, in Joseph and Potiphar, he's sold to the captain of the guard in Egypt. And it says in chapter 39, verse 2, it says, "The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man. And he was in the house of his Egyptian master." Now, if I'm Joseph in this situation, and I was just sold into slavery by my brothers, you know, this is actually kind of like, it's a hard story because what his brothers did, they almost killed him, but then they said, no, we can make some money off this guy and still pretend he's dead. So let's sell him into slavery, we'll get money from it, then we'll go tell Dad that he's dead. And man, we just made out like bandits. This is awesome. And so that's what they do. So he's sold into slavery for nothing he did wrong, except having a call on his life. He's sold into slavery, and the scripture says that the Lord was with Joseph, and he became everything he did to be successful. But then you would know, if anyone knows this story, you would know that doesn't last long, because Potiphar's wife tries to get with Joseph. Joseph refuses it because he knows it's wrong. Instead, the wife then lies, gets Joseph in trouble, and lies and tells Potiphar, he said, hey, this slave that you've given like ownership over our household, he just tried to get with me. And Potiphar believes her, and so he kicks him out of the house. And actually, for a short time we see Joseph almost elevated out of his slavery, but he's immediately put down even further, where now he's a prisoner. And he goes through this trial again, and when he's in prison, the scripture says again that the Lord was with Joseph. And so the same thing almost happens, where he's elevated a little bit in that role, but then, guess what? People forget about him. He helps two prisoners, and trying to get out of the prison there. They have dreams, and he interprets them, tells them these good things that are going to happen. And all he asks is the one prisoner is going to die, but the other one's going to get restored to his other position. And he tells that one, he said, hey, I interpreted this for you. Will you please remember me when you get out of here? It's going to happen. Will you remember me? And the scripture says that he forgot Joseph. Just forgot him. Not just for like a little time period. I'm talking years. So Joseph's left in there even more. What did Joseph do wrong? He didn't do anything. He was experiencing just injustice from simply trying to do the right thing. And so when we continue to follow that story, eventually we see Joseph actually elevated all the way up to almost the highest position in Egypt, right next to Pharaoh. And it's because of Joseph's calling that he indeed reigns over Egypt. And in fact, the Lord uses Joseph to save that nation from a famine, because Joseph was wise and he had a calling on his life. And so if we learn anything from this passage, from this story, what really speaks to me as someone that had a calling on his life years ago, it tells me that it's not going to come easy. Yeah, and when he was in Potiphar's house, the Bible says that he was successful. It doesn't mean that you're going to be rich. It doesn't mean that good things are going to happen all the time. In fact, very hard things are going to happen. Why? Because when God calls us to higher places, he needs to put us in seasons of refinement. He needs to make us more and more like him. He actually needs to humble us sometimes. Lord knows I need a ton of humbling every single day. You know, I have a heart for the lost. I'm going to talk about that here shortly. I have a heart for the lost. That's one of my greatest burdens in this world. But the problem with that is sometimes I like to think I'm actually Jesus. I like to sit on his throne. I like to think I'm the one that's saving people. And you know what? I need those seasons of refinement. As hard as they might be, even though I don't necessarily deserve it, it's something that I need because because of those seasons where Joseph was giving these short time periods of authority in these low places, that God then elevated him to a place of high authority where he was actually, because of those seasons of refinement, that he was actually able to be equipped to save this nation. In fact, save his own brothers, where that dream that was upon his life when he was a teenager, years down the road, probably at least 10 years down the road, his brothers indeed bowed down to him, but not out of a place of shame, but rather out of a place of apology and reconciliation and thankfulness because their brother saved them from death. And so if you hear anything I say today, first and foremost, just know it's not about me. This is not about Bryce's calling into the missions field. Rather, this is about the calling that God has placed on each of our lives and what pieces of the kingdom he's asked us to take a part of, no matter how low they may be, no matter how high they may be. And so that being said, I relate a lot, not necessarily in the hardships of Joseph, but I relate to that idea of a calling on his life and going through those seasons of refinement, those seasons of almost training. But at the same time, those seasons were made for a specific purpose. They weren't just about training, rather they are making us more and more like God. Scripture says in Genesis that we are the image of God. We bear the likeness of God. And so sometimes God just needs to, if you imagine a huge rock, how do you make a marble statue? Well, you got to knock off the pieces that don't look like the final product. And sometimes God needs to do that with us. So, that being said,
I'm really excited.
yes. I thought you were excited about my point. Yeah, so what is my calling to the missions field? Why do I feel such a strong burden for calling, this strong burden about the story of Joseph in these seasons of refinement? Well, let me give you a little insight into who I am. Yes. So, let's talk some specific dates here. This is 2021. This July, it would have been 12 years ago in that building. Does this got a laser pointer on it? Yes, it does. In that building right there, that's the Mahaffey Youth Tab. And it was in that building that God laid on a calling on my life years ago. In fact, through a crazy dream. I was sitting in the Mahaffey Youth Tab, and the pastor, if you know anything about, if you're a longtime Alliance member, you know this, that the one thing that we push hard on is missions and church ministry. And so, of course, we're sitting there, and then we had the speaker. I don't even remember what he was talking about, but at the end of the time, he had a 5-minute prayer time where he just asked us to sit in silence and prayer, ask God, where would you have me to serve you? What kind of ministry? I think of Isaiah. He said, here am I, send me. And so we're praying. I didn't hear anything. I was 13 years old. I didn't hear anything from God. At least I didn't think I was. I was frustrated because I try to take that time very seriously. So we end the worship time, I leave discouraged. Well, that particular day, the only day throughout the whole week of camp there, I brought a friend with me, and he said, I have a confession to make. I said, well, what's up? He said, I kind of fell asleep during that prayer time. I'm like, are you kidding me? I brought you as a gift. I try to take this time seriously, and here you are just sleeping it off. I said, yeah, I had this weird dream where there's some kind of little leprechaun looking dude. And he was something about clouds, and almost I imagine that story of Joseph with the sheep standing upright and bowing down to people, or the stars coming down and bowing down, but in that same way where it's just weird. But I tell you what, in that moment, as crazy as that situation was, as weird as it was, as unlikely as it was, that was the first time in my life where I knew the Holy Spirit was speaking to me loud and clear. And that he was calling me to overseas missions, specifically in Ireland. Now, when I first got that calling, that was... I was on board. I was an early teenager. I was young. I was like, all right, sweet, God calling my life. I've been waiting for this moment. Let's go. And so I enrolled in our local VOTEC school to do carpentry. Because I figured, well, missionaries, when they go places, they build houses, so I got to learn how to build houses. And so I went there, and I learned construction skills. But, I don't know that necessarily God was telling me to build houses. Rather, I think there's a higher purpose there. And, I went off to college. I graduated from Waynesburg University with a degree in biblical ministry studies and a focus on international missions, because I told God, if you're going to send me to the missions field, I need training. Years ago, and when I was about Charlie's age, when I was about 17 years old, I began to doubt my calling, because, what missionary goes to Ireland? When's the last time you heard someone say, I'm a missionary from Ireland? If you do, please tell me, I want to connect with them. But, man, that just doesn't happen. Missionaries don't go to there. And I started to doubt my call, and it was in that season, and in fact, in Mahaffey camp, where God began to give me a lot of confirmation, a lot of God moments. One of them, I had by chance had a dinner with the president of a lunch with the president of the alliance, just randomly. I'm in line at the lunch there, and I'm scooping out my food, and this old guy in front of me is making a bunch of old guy jokes, and I'm just giving him a pity laugh. And then all of a sudden I hear someone say, "Hey, be careful, that's the president in front of you." And I looked up, and there's Mr. Stumbo. And he said, "Hey, can I join you for lunch?" I didn't know the guy before. I said, "Sure." So we sat down, and it was even through that moment where we talked about calling and this idea of Ireland. And instead of giving me a weird face like everyone always gave, he said, "I've connected with a couple people, and there seems to be a need there. Maybe there's a reason you've actually received that calling. Maybe there's something more there." That was huge for me. And that was just one story of many. And so God took away all my doubt from that. I no longer have any inkling of doubt by the grace of God. And so I went off to college. I got a degree in international missions. And then I was getting ready to move out of the college, and I said, "God, where would you have me what's this next season that you have for me? I don't think it's Ireland just yet. I think they still got some refinement to do. I think there's stuff that you need to prepare me for, so where is that?" And the story of Jonah, where he says, "Don't send me to Nineveh." So I had a Nineveh. I said, "God, I'll serve anywhere. Put me in music ministry, put me with a nursing home or something, put me with babies, I don't care. Whatever it is, just don't send me to youth ministry." And that's where he sent me. I've been serving as a youth pastor for the past 2 years. It's been great. God redeemed my heart for the youth. In fact, I have a passion for them now that I didn't know was capable. And then in August 23rd of 2020 was when I officially proposed to my longtime girlfriend. And so, of course, that brought the aspect of calling. God, where would you have me go? We know Ireland's coming. Now you're bringing us together. She's serving as a full-time missionary right now. Where would you have us bring us together? And we prayed. I saw my own counselors, my own mentors. And ultimately, God actually put a conviction on my life about my thinking about missions. See, for the longest time, I had my focus on Ireland. I'm only called to Ireland, because that's what happens when you're a missionary. You feel called to a specific people. And in fact, one of my mentors, I was serving in Atlanta, Georgia with refugees from all over the world. And one day, one of the missionaries asked me, as we're in the midst of evangelizing, he tells me, "Do you feel called to any of these people yet?" I felt bad, because at this point, if you go into missions, the next question someone asks you is, "Well, where do you feel called? Who do you feel called to?" And I felt bad, because I was looking around, I was like, I love these people, but I don't feel called to a specific people group. And he looked at me and he's like, "That's good. Me neither." Now it's huge, because I began to warp my mind about my calling. Yes, he's called me to Ireland, but there's a greater calling there that's not just about location. And so, as me and my fiance began to pray about where God was calling us in this next season, we knew it was another season of preparation, refinement, and that brought every impact into place. I had other job opportunities, but none of them was working as flawlessly and giving me as much peace as there was at Urban Impact. And so Just to give you a little bit of an idea about Urban Impact, their goal is to change lives holistically, one person, one family, one block at a time. 25 years ago, the founder, Ed Glover, grew out of Allegheny Center Alliance Church in the north side of Pittsburgh. Ed Glover's there as a youth pastor at the time, and he's getting his car stolen like 3 times a week. And he's like, God, there's so much brokenness around me. How am I supposed to make an impact? And it's weird. I'm just going to say this right now. But God said, Ed, how do you eat an elephant? It said, I guess one bite at a time. And I tell you what, from that moment on, that's where Urban Impact grew out of, that idea of, rather than try to attack everything at once, no, we're going to start with one family just like Jesus did. We're not going to go house to house. We're going to start with one person, then one family, then one block at a time until we see Jesus and the kingdom of God begin to build itself in the north side of Pittsburgh. In other words, if you don't know anything about the north side, it's more or less the ghetto of Pittsburgh. It's the parts that people don't like to go to. It's the part that everyone kind of like, we pretend it's not there. Let's go down to the strip district or something where there's a bunch of vendors and a lot of cool people there. So the mission statement is this: our mission is to do our part in fulfilling Christ's great commission on the north side of Pittsburgh by following his model of holistic ministry by investing in the lives of at-risk children, youth, and their families in order to develop responsible followers of Christ. In other words, there's 2 focuses of Urban Impact. The first is we care about someone's present situation. There's a lot of generational poverty within the north side of Pittsburgh. The hard thing about generational poverty is that is someone's worldview. In other words, this is what I've grown up in. There's no escape from this. No one before me has been able to escape this. There's no inheritance here for me to get out of this. This is just what I gotta live with. And for the people that maybe have an idea of how to get out, it's probably a Hail Mary, like a miracle of some sort. For the boys, it looks like I just gotta make it to the NBA. That's how I'm gonna get out of here. Well, man, if you know anything about professional sports, that's a long shot. That's not a good fallback plan for many of these students. But again, that's their mindset. Is basically it's going to take me a miracle to get out of here. Is the underlying message there. So Urban Impact works to reach the north side there through their students. We have a bunch of outreach programs. If you think of it like a funnel, there's a bunch of outreach programs up here where we're serving 2,000 students every year through athletic programs, fine arts, music, whatever. And I'm not talking like, free-for-all time. I'm talking, no, we're going to teach some ballet skills. We're going to teach some jazz dance courses. We're going to put on shows with our choir and actually put on professional-looking shows. We're going to create an actual basketball team, not just an open gym. And so they're preaching the gospel because the other portion of that is this, that we care so much about someone's present situation, but we also care about their eternal situation. We can't have one without the other. There's, that eternal situation is, in fact, even more important. And so we're able to preach the gospel in these moments where we're actually serving them in their real needs. So, for instance, just to give you a little idea here, we're talking about real needs. So, you guys know what food drives are? Here's the problem with most food drives, is that they don't do a good job. This is just an overarching statement, but many food drives don't do a good job of bringing dignity to the people that we're serving. Rather, a lot of the food drives I've been a part of, that I've seen in my past, has been a lot of, well, we're just going to donate whatever random piece of can that's been sitting in my pantry for 10 years. I just need to clear out space here. So this is a good opportunity for me to get that. In fact, Urban Impact says, no, that's not restoring dignity. That's not actually serving people on our needs. Because what are they going to do with a care package of corn and spaghetti noodles and all this other random stuff that doesn't go together? No, here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask people to give their best gift here. We're going to actually put together solid boxes. So for instance, if we're going to give them spaghetti noodles, that means we're going to give them something to do with those. We're going to give them spaghetti sauce. We're going to give them meat. We're going to give them sides to go with it, side salads. We're going to give them dressing for that salad. We're going to give them a chance to actually provide a meal for their family that's not made out of the junk of other people, but rather stuff that is of value. And that's when we start restoring dignity to them. And so, I guess really the question that I've asked myself over and over again, and people ask me is, how does this come into play here? So you care about missions, you care about, the lost. How does urban impact fit into this? Well, my vision is this. My first calling, yes, I'm called to Ireland, but my underneath calling is this: to go to the lost, whoever they are, wherever they are, and proclaim the good news of Jesus. In other words, what's my greatest burden for the world, for other of you guys? It might be maybe children, it might be, abuse, domestic abuse, whatever it is. But for me, and I'm not trying to give a Sunday school answer here, my greatest burden in this world is that there are people that don't know my God. My greatest hope for my life is not even a thing in other people's lives. Just think about that. Your greatest hope is not the same hope for other people. Your greatest hope. And so I care about the lost, whoever they are, wherever they are, proclaim the good news of Jesus. And my second is this: to be an agent of revival that others went into the harvest field. Essentially, I got two sweet spots. I gotta be where the lost are, and I gotta be helping other people to have their light bulb moments. So most of the time, I've been in these seats before where a missionary comes, they start talking to you all about the lost and how much there's people going to hell, and we need to do more, and you're sitting there, many of you might even be sitting there right now where you're thinking, well, that's great for you, but I'm not called there, I'm not gifted in that way. God's not asking me to do that. That's for the missionaries. I'll just keep doing my thing here. I've worked with people like that before where I've trained them to do evangelism. One of my favorite moments is when they have their light bulb moment of, whoa, you mean I was actually created to do this too? Maybe not going overseas, maybe not participating in a mission organization, but you mean I can actually participate in this? God's gifted me to actually proclaim His good news? This is incredible. It blows their whole world away because they just assumed that they were sidelined for the rest of their lives. When no, God's called us to have a piece of the kingdom. And so, for my job, what I'm going to be doing, I'm moving to Pittsburgh in June to begin work in the training center where I get to hit both my sweet spots. First, we're going to be bringing in short-term missions teams, and this is where I think a lot of you have an opportunity to participate. Whether that's from afar, or whether that's actually come to Pittsburgh. Because the goal here is to bring short-term missions teams to Pittsburgh. So the organization has long-term missionaries on staff. And we're going to bring in short-term people. We're going to train them how to do urban missions. I think there's a false perception out there that sometimes you just wake up and you're just a missionary. No, you got to do some training first. You got to do some preparation. You got to have some seeds of refinement. And so we're going to bring in people to the training center, train them how to do short-term missions, ask them to participate in this work. But in order for me to train other people, that means I got to be doing the work myself. So I'm going to be right with people, also ministering to the lost, and also having this opportunity to see people have their light bulb moments. Because the goal here is to create sustainability. Maybe through these teams that God would actually call out full-time missionaries to start serving in the north side of Pittsburgh. That's our hope, that's our prayer, because the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. In my fiance's department, so you got all these people up here. She works in what's called the options department, where she looks to transition high school students from high school life to after high school life. That's a hard job when you're looking at generational poverty, because that's a lot of first-generation college people. That's a lot of first-generation anything. And the parents don't know how to help their students in this way. And so she looks to step in those moments. Well, in her department, you got the 2,000 people up here funneling down here. In her department, there's 2 people, including her. We need help. Plain and simple. We need workers. And so there's opportunity for people to actually step in and have a piece of the kingdom here. And so for me, this is why I'm so excited about this work. Because I don't know how long the season's going to last. I'm going to open it up for some Q&A now, if you guys have questions. But here's the goal, is that we want to see, God cares about lost people, He wants them found. And there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of ways that we can be Jesus to these people. And so for me, this is This is an exciting opportunity where God's going to, I don't know how long it's going to be, we're going to be here, at least 3 to 5 years, maybe longer, however long God keeps us here. But in the meantime, I get to see more and more people come to Christ. And I'm praying for it, that God's going to use me and it's going to use you guys as well.
So hey, Bryce is gonna take this.
Was on. Bryce is going to take a couple of questions. I've got a couple of questions for you. So,
Yeah.
when Bryce contacted me, I immediately got excited. I hear from missionaries all the time who want to come speak. And I don't know, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. It starts to get old.
Yeah.
It starts to get old. Here's a picture, here's what I'm doing, and here's how you can be involved. Just send us money. And that's really hard to do because how many of us are just sitting on extra money? Right? Like Bryce talked about a calling. So when I heard about this, I thought, man, not only is this something relatively local that we could go learn to do and support, but really, I'd be super excited about bringing a team, learning what you guys are doing there, and doing something similar here. We don't have anything like that in our area, so we can reinvent the wheel and try to figure out how to minister to kids, especially kids in generational poverty type situations, because just because this is Oak County doesn't mean everybody's rich. I mean, I know the people on this side of the room are, but some of us over here aren't. So I would love, I'm familiar with Urban Impact. I worked on the north side of Pittsburgh. It's the scariest parts of the city. I've been there. But I'm super excited about partnering with Bryce because I want to learn how to do what Urban Impact is doing so well. Rural impact, maybe we call it, because we're not really in an urban environment. But is that something where as people come down and they learn how to do ministry in that context, can we then take that and transpose it to a rural environment?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, that's why it's called a training center. Whether people come to work for Urban Impact or not, the idea here is that we need to train people how to do missions in this kind of environment. Not just in the north side, but here, there's so much opportunity that we don't realize is there because speaking as someone that cares about someone's salvation, there's so much opportunity for the church to be Jesus in their areas to serve real physical needs.
Excellent. So in your mind, and it's a leading question, I know the answer's not yes, I just want to, are you looking at your time or Urban Impact is, paying my dues,
right?
Real missions is down the road.
Yeah.
But that's real missions work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, if you had asked me that question a couple years ago, I would say, it's just my little training wheel time until I go and do real missions. But through my own seasons of God refining me, no, this isn't training wheel time. No, because these are real people. These are real people. These are lost people that don't know Jesus. Yeah, there's maybe a little bit of training there that I'm going to go through because who knows what's going to happen when God sends me over to Ireland. I might be doing something like Urban Impact there. Who knows? But guess what? I've never done this before. I don't know anything. I need people above me. And so, yes, I actually get to help build this program from the ground up. But I'm not the one that's in charge. I got authority over me because I need leadership. I need accountability. And so in this way, this is a season for me to grow my giftings, essentially add more stuff to my tool belt. But at the same time, the only way that you actually add spiritual tools to your tool belt is you got to be serving in real ways, not fake ways. Not like, let's put up the practice dummies. No. Because these are real people. In fact, I was at a youth conference last night where there was a student there that was sharing his story of coming from a broken home, borderline a single-parent home. He had a stepdad come into his life, but they were arguing day and night, and he was constantly, he said at 2 a.m. on the clock every night his mom would leave because his stepdad was forcing them out. And he's stuck in a situation where there's drugs and whatnot. And he's sitting there and he's just broken. He's asking, what did I do to deserve this? I didn't do anything wrong. And in fact, I thought about this last night where when that student shared his testimony, I thought, I know God spoke to me and he said, Bryce, those are the same people and there's so much more of them sitting on the north side there. Those are the people that need me and you need to tell them about me.
It's encouraging, one, because I know you.
Yeah.
We've got a relationship. You're working with Alliance people, so I trust the people your word with. In fact, Bryce and I almost ended up working together down in Atlanta.
Yeah.
2 years
yeah.
ago, we were talking about working for that same missions organization down there.
Yeah.
So it's encouraging when you can give to something, when you can volunteer and serve something, and then kind of keep up with it. I mean, oftentimes, I've been in Alliance churches for 20-some years, and
Yeah.
Jose Smith comes through and he tells all about the ministry they're doing in Guadalajara. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And then you never hear from the guy again. And I'm super excited about finding some sort of relationship where if we can work together, there can be some sort of feedback, communication both ways.
Yeah.
Maybe not bring you 2.5 hours up here to talk, but whether we do video conferences or something. Is that the type of partnership you're looking for?
Absolutely, because here's the thing about my support raising thing is this idea of a system. It's so much more than just financial giving. Yes, that's a big portion of it because I can't actually start my job until I am fully raised. I'm what's called a support raised missionary, where I need to gain support from other people where they're giving to me either one time or monthly, and that's my salary for the year. And I have to raise about 80% of that before I can actually start. But you see, it's actually so much more than that. Because for me, this is about building a relationship. This is about building a support system, not a financial system, a support system. Because Lord knows I need people in my corner. I need to be having that relationship with whoever actually feels called to join my support team. So for me, in fact, that's something that even if you guys didn't offer that, that's something I'd be asking for. Is for me to be able to stay in a relationship with you guys. I will drive 2.5 hours. I don't care because I love face-to-face things. I love being able to see the people that are with me in this mission. And so yes, there's opportunities for me to stay connected with you guys, whether it's me coming up here, which will happen. If you guys choose to join, if you feel called, even that's the most important thing. I'll just say this right now. If you don't feel called to support, I don't want it. I only want it if God's in it. And I want you guys to hear me in that. I want God to be with me as much along the way. So if you feel a pull towards that, yes, please join me. But if you don't, that's okay. That's okay. Because I want God to be a part of that. And so I'll be driving up here. I'll be sending monthly newsletters. There's ways to connect with me on Facebook. Where I'm going to be probably once we get married here, we're going to be creating a Facebook group for people so we can give normal day-to-day updates. But then we'll be sending newsletters monthly. Yeah, that answers the question.
Okay, I got a couple more I want to ask, but does anyone else have a question for Bryce now?
Give us an example of what you're looking for. We want these individuals to do with their training, what kind of stuff they do.
Yeah, that's good. So
everybody hear the question? So Dustin said, hey, give me an example of what type of training an individual would go through if they came down a short-term mission trip.
Yeah. So basically we got a lot of departments. And so my specific job is to coordinate between those departments, between athletics, fine arts, education, all these different things. And the goal here is we're going to look at, all right, because it's going to be different. First we got to look at the group that's coming, what do they want to participate in, but then what are our actual needs where we're not just asking for babysitters. Where are places where people can actually step in. And so that looks like actually like being with the students, maybe serving being volunteering for a week or so where we're helping people to understand, not just understand the culture of the north side, because it's different than my culture that I grew up in. I got a lot to learn. So understanding the culture. But then, how can we step in and be Jesus? Maybe that looks like we need to deliver, if we're doing a food drive, we need people to help us deliver here. We need people to maybe come in and help a student with their education, or maybe their musical gifts, or their physical gifts, or maybe we just simply need help with some kind of building project that we just don't have the manpower for. We need help. And so there's a lot of opportunity for that, and I can once I get there, there's going to be even more specifics for that. That's kind of the broad focus of what I'm looking at right now. But there's areas where I'm going to be able to communicate even better once I'm there and doing the work. Once I'm actually coordinating between these different departments, because the reality is we're not looking for babysitters. We're not looking for people to have their little vacation time. No, this is. We're looking for people to step in and have just as much of an impact that the rest of us are having. that answers the question.
All right, I'm going to bring you the mic.
My question is, you're also talking about supporting the families of these kids that you're going to be
Yeah.
involved with.
Yeah.
How are you looking at doing that kind of thing with bringing the families into it?
Sure.
Because, you know, impacting a child is very, very important, but without parental support,
Right.
you don't get there. So how are you looking at doing that as well?
Yeah, so that's the cool thing about Urban Impact is they try very hard to make sure people are functioning out their gifts and essentially staying in their lane. You know, Paul says to be all things to all people, but God's also given us specific giftings. And so maybe not every department is focused on the family part, but in fact my fiance, here's the deal. You got a lot of single parent homes in the north side of Pittsburgh, a lot of children. And so a mom is sitting there, she's at a loss because she's never had to fill out FAFSA before. She's never had to help her student fill out a resume or something. She doesn't have all the knowledge. She might not even have Wi-Fi to simply send out an email. And so what my fiance does is she's actually sitting down with the families themselves. She has a lot of relationship with these parents, where she goes through them to hire their students. She's in constant communication with the parents, where she's sitting down with the parent themselves, helping the parent to figure out how do we get your student here. She might be sending an email to a school in place of the parent, by the parent's permission, of course, but stepping in these ways where the parent just simply isn't capable. But in order to do that, she's in constant communication there. And so while we have a focus sort of on the youth, the families is the most important part where she's building relationships with the parents. So the education department would have a good hand in that as well. And of course, the food drives, through the students we found out the needs of the parents. And so how can we step in, maybe a parent's in the hospital, how can we step in and help that person out with their bills? With the food drives. This parent simply needs help with cooking meals. This person doesn't have the capability to provide for their family, so how can we help them? But also provide dignity, because here's the thing about poverty. There's already a lot of embarrassment about that situation. How can we try to alleviate that and also just provide very practical help that's actually helpful, if that makes sense?
So one of the things you said was help build this program from the ground up, but
Yeah.
you also said Urban Impact's been around for 25 years. So
Yeah.
as I've been on their website all week, there's tons of success stories built into that.
Mhm.
So what are you building? What about what you're doing is different from what Urban Impact has been doing on an
Yeah.
ongoing basis?
Yeah, good. So I'm just going to say this. Here's the thing about short-term missions, is for a while there, we were very bad at doing short-term missions. In fact, borderline toxic. We were building houses for people, but then we were just building it and leaving them to do the rest of the work and didn't ask for any of that. So we thought we were doing good things. So Urban Impact has established this long line of missionaries throughout these years, 25 years, long-term missionaries. For me, they've never brought in any short-term missions teams before. But, they've seen this work that they've done, and they said, there's no reason for us to hoard this. We need to share this with others. We need to help people to actually learn how to do this, and maybe even serve with us if God calls them that way. And so for me, this looks different because we're actually looking to start training people in a short-term way, giving them an experience, actually giving them a chance to have a taste of what's happening there. We're going to build that up and help them to do that elsewhere. My specific job is to coordinate between the departments there. I'm going to work on the details of what's actually going to happen when people get there. And then my boss is the one that's going out and doing recruiting of different churches, asking people, hey, will you come and have an experience with us, get a taste of what's happening here. We'll help you to do it. We'll train you. And then let's see what happens after that. We'll have a conversation afterwards. And so if that makes sense, that's kind of how it's different from what we've been doing, because now we're asking other people to step in and seeing if we can get more people to help join us, but giving them a chance to experience that without a ton of pressure. Basically, a better answer would be they saw for the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of maybe 1 or 2 year missionaries, because people would come into the missions field and then they're like, oh, maybe this isn't for me. I think God's actually calling me somewhere else. I think this was just supposed to be a short time. That's tough because we're trying to build longevity and sustainability. And so you have people kind of dropping off after years. And so the goal here is to get people, let's try to offset that a little bit. Let's bring in people for a short amount of time. If they want to, they can commit to a year-long commitment in what's called a fellows program. They can commit there, and after that year, we'll revisit that conversation. All right, is this something that you foresee happening long-term? Because sometimes people step into something and then we find out, oh, this is what I want to do long-term. That's okay. Let's just try to see if we can try to create more sustainability out of that while still allowing people that grace in that room to have some experience there.
So we're going to wrap up. Does anybody else have a question they want to have answered right now? If not, the Missions and Evangelism Committee is going to meet with Bryce after church today to kind of talk about, hey, do we want to go into, do we want to begin a long-term partnership, and we'll kind of grill him a little more.
Yeah.
But let me ask one last question to you before we'll wrap up the service here. If an individual, regardless of what the church wants to do, says, man, I love what you were doing, what's the best way for them to partner with you, whether it was financially or volunteering time? How can somebody who's sitting here today who really wants to get involved do that?
Yeah. So if you look up here, I first need a team of financial supporters, but I also more importantly, I need a team of prayer warriors and accountability partners. I need people that are going to be praying for me and checking in on me and building that relationship. And so that's my salary for those that care about it. Of course, we'll get into that later. This question of will you join me? You know, there's ways of giving. You could one time, monthly, quarterly, annually as an individual if that's something that you feel called to do. I would ask that you would actually ask God for that. You know, I'm basically asking you to ask God, if that makes sense. And so one time, monthly, quarterly, annually, I will say, just to be straightforward and honest with you guys, monthly gifts are more helpful because they're more sustainable. We know that's reoccurring. It's just like, you know, getting a paycheck every week. We know that's reoccurring. Now, I'm also not going to argue if God says, I want you to give a lump sum. Okay, that's what God wants. I'm not going to argue with that. And so, anything is helpful. We do look to create more monthly reoccurring donations. And so, do the breakdown later, but so there's ways to give. You can give online there at the website. That's Urban Impact Foundation, Pittsburgh. It's all the abbreviations there, uifpgh.org/donate. There should be, it'll take you a donation form. You can fill out, you'll hit Give to an Urban Missionary. It'll take you to a form, and there's a drop-down list where it gives everyone's name, and you can find my name there, Bryce McGarvey.
I'll drop that link onto the Facebook page as well, so perfect, easier to find.
Yeah, and then of course, apart from giving, if you just say, hey, I want to pray for you though, I want to keep updated, that's cool. I'll get you signed up for, I'll get your contact info and get you signed up for that when I'm actually there sending out monthly newsletters. What's cool about Urban Impact is we're not just worried about the money coming in and like people giving to us, but they actually push for us to build that relationship with the donors. And so that means I get to give people calls. That means I get to be in constant communication with people, not just, hey, give to me and then I'll never talk to you again. No, this is going to be a relationship here. And then, and of course, if you want to volunteer, there's numerous, of course, needs are changing every day. And so it's going to look different throughout the year. And so there will be opportunities for people to step in and volunteer, whether that's delivering food to people, bringing in food or whatever. Maybe it looks like something else. Maybe we need help with an event where we just need volunteers. We need people to help control traffic or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what's going to look like. Like I said, needs are going to change every day because that's the reality of what we're trying to do. We're going to serve the real needs right now. And so those are opportunities. And of course, if you want to come on a short-term missions trip, man, reach out. We'll figure something out.
Very cool. Bryce, let me pray for you, and I'm going to talk to that. We're going to close.